And from the Highlands of Scotland, we come back down to the Midlands and, of course, to Donington Park. This is where we started the season all those months ago, but we return this time not to the national circuit, but to the full GP circuit, including the ever-famous Melbourne hairpin. It's going to be an awesome racing evening of action for the VMO TCUK for 2023, round 8 of the season. Myself, Cameron Roger and Zach Sweeney will be taking you through all of the action with, of course, Mikey out of Simply Race on the cameras behind the scenes as well. And Zach, is an awesome circuit here. It's one of the, obviously, the fan favourites, is one of the more famous ones in the country. And we're coming here for round 8. And I just can't wait to see what action we're going to get up to this evening.
Yeah, I know. I love Donington. It's honestly one of my favourite circuits, not only sort of in the UK, but also just in general in motorsport. So much fun to drive around here. The undulation, driving your way through the Craner curves, and of course, when we get the VMO TCUK guys around here, I am absolutely positive we're going to have some awesome fun. As we've said, we're on the full Grand Prix layout, so we go through the Fogger TSs, basically just adding 2 hairpins, the Melbourne, and then of course at Goddard's for the final corner. Amazing circuit is Donington, and of course a very close championship fight as well to keep our eyes peeled on amongst all of the other carnage that I'm sure is going to play host here as well.
Yeah, this championship is ever changing in many ways because of all of the sort of argy-bargy racing. But what hasn't changed for a while is Matt Richards up at the front of the standings. He's got Dan Herlock in behind, and as you'll see, we've got 0.5 points. So going back to Knockhill last time, race 1 had the red flag, so half points were given for that race. So that's why some of the drivers have half points. But it's 23.5 points is the gap for Dan Herlock to try and close down in these final 3 rounds of the season. Thomas O'Leary having an awesome season, strong season for him, up into 3rd place. Callum Cripps having a close battle with the 2 Rocket Sim Sport cars of Ross McGregor and John Munro inside your top 6. Dan Kell is in 7th place with Callum Wilson, Lewis Redshaw and Ryan Elliott rounding out your top 10. But it's of course the team's standings as well that we need to check in on, because there's some close fights in that one. Not for Richards and Co racing up towards the front. They've got a huge gap, getting close to 150 points almost to RSR. But in behind them is Rocket Simsport with a very close battle, just 13 or so points for them. Very close indeed. DMA Racing, that's Thomas O'Leary's team, in 4th place with Calamity in 5th. Drake are in 6th place. Kings and Ballas inside your top 8. And Team Butchie and Atagani there rounding out your top 10 for the independent entries there at the bottom. Certainly a tricky event and a tricky format of racing. Of course, we have the 3 races coming your way. The first race will come from the ballast will come from the championship standings. For race 2, the ballast will then move to result of race 1, and for race 3, as ever, Zach, we get the reverse grid. And there's a couple new names on the field today. A couple of reserves coming in, and even some teams changing cars. So we got the TR Geeks Energy cars, sort of on the what's that? The 4th, 5th column there. We've got Scott Morris, Leppert, and Hartley. They have all changed to the Infinity. So Zach, they've basically withdrawn all their points up to this point in the standings. They've, because of the chassis change. So let's see what fortunes that changes them in the final races of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely means they're not going to be winning any championships, but maybe they could bag a couple of podiums or race wins towards the end. Of course, we have seen with the rear-wheel drive cars of the BMW and the Infinity, they're very strong. Especially at certain circuits. We have seen numerous times where it has been fairly rear-wheel drive dominant, but there has been a couple of times where maybe the front-wheel drive has been a little bit better, but out and out, you would say the rear-wheel drive cars are a stronger choice. They have been more consistent over the course of the season, so maybe for the TI Geeks Energy guys, it's more just a case of a late dash at the end of the season and see how well they can pick up. But already towards the tail end of the season, Cam, after today, only 2 more rounds to go at Silverstone and Brands. That is, I don't know, it's scary how quick it's gone. It seems like only yesterday we were back in May.
Yeah, it's certainly gone pretty quickly. Of course, we had the Brands Indy race that got moved as well, so that sort of pushed everything 1 race weekend back effectively. So now finishing in October for Brands GP that time around. But as you say, the 3 of the biggest tracks in the country are the three to finish off the season. So 9 races are left, 3 races per evening, and still plenty of action to be had. Dan Herlock, he might be 23.5 points behind Zach, but he's having a really strong run in this second half of the season, closing down that gap. Do you think he's got any chance of challenging Richards there, or is there going to be maybe some other drivers trying to get involved in nicking those race wins?
Oh, well, I honestly, I would say Dan Haddock has got a very strong chance, but Matt Richards has been equally strong. What we have to consider is the fact that Dan Haddock has missed an entire round. He didn't attend Snetterton, and unfortunately they do not get drop weeks, so he's had to sort of claw back that deficit ever since. And to be fair to him, he's done a really, really good job. Of course, between the two of them, Matt Richards 4 wins, 10 podiums. Dan Herlock 5 wins, 9 podiums. So in all fairness to them, they have been very, very equal, but Dan Herlock has done it in 3 less starts, and as we say, is only, sorry, what did we say, 23.5 points back on Matt Richards, which, fair play to him. That is a really strong run of form. So it's going to take a lot of consistency. It's going to take a lot of hard work for Herlock to win this championship. Maybe a little bit of misfortune in the way of Matt Richards over the course of the final 3 rounds as well. But I definitely think it's possible. But also, we've seen the likes of Thomas O'Leary really rise up to the occasion. Ryan Elliott as well, showing some good pace throughout the season. There could definitely be a couple more surprises throughout the final few rounds.
Yeah, there certainly are, and as ever, I didn't quite finish the point of some of the drivers coming in. As ever, we're trying to keep the grids full. So we have some sub drivers coming in. We've got Cedu Vaya coming in for the Rocket Simsport entry. And I do believe that's from Tobias Blumschein, who's had he at least had a penalty, a race ban penalty a couple of races ago. Actually, it might be for John Munro for this race. We've got Jeff Fournier coming in as well for YTF Racing. So that's Matt Allington's team coming in. Of course, Fournier is very much known on the R Factor 2 platform. And we also have Ben Bennyworth coming in to Quartermass. So good to see, Zach, that obviously plenty of drivers still coming in over the course of the season.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of, big names, recognisable names across sort of R Factor 2 sim racing and things. And the good thing is that we haven't really had sort of a clear group of slower drivers. Over the course of the season, there's been quite a lot of fluctuations. That fight for the back end of the top 10, sometimes even sort of the fight for the top 5 towards the front has always been constantly changing. So yes, we have had quite a few newer drivers join in over the course of the season, 37 in total now registered on the driver standings, but all of them at least have had a good go at the very least some points, which I think is really, really telling of how good this grid is, how strong the competitive nature of it is, and well, I'm sure again, as I say, it's going to be continuing throughout the final 3 rounds. And well, yeah, let's just bring it on, because I think the format really does lend itself quite well. Yes, we've got the tyre choices, so different drivers are going to be quicker in different races thanks to their tyre choices. We've then got the balanced performance, which are the cars, and then obviously we've got the ballast as well, which really allows these guys to race well. But here we go for the grid.
Dan Herlock got pole position from Dan Kell on your front row. Callum Wilson and Thomas O'Leary rounding out your top 4 for your first race of the evening. Ross McGregor on that second row with Jack London. He had a very good race last time out at Knockhill as well. Cedu Vaya there, the subbing driver for Rocket, and 7th place, and Churgwin rounding out the top 8. Thomas Ravag for RSR is in P9 with Callum Cripps, Richards and Co racing driver, just ahead of his team boss Matt Richards, leading the championship in P11. Jeff Fournier in P12. Scott Servig, a little bit low down, he would have wanted in P13. Stephen Haley there in 14th place. Phil Garside and Cam Brewster round out your top 16. P17 is going to be Ryan Elliott. He's had a bit of an up and down season so far. Ben Willis down in 18th place. Dowman is in 19th, and Anthony Hilton in that 20th place in the number 75 machine. Another sub-driver, Ben Bennyworth, in 21st place. Louis Hartley in 22nd. Leppit and Scott Morris. So that's all of your TR cars towards the back of the field. Of course, swapping the chassis for the remainder of the season. Adam Christopher in 25th place, and Lewis Redshaw will be starting from the back of the field. And he's had a couple of solid races actually so far. He got a race win and a podium back at Oulton Park, and a couple of other podiums at Thruxton and Brands as well. Certainly going to be a interesting one to see what he can do from the back. But as we come into the Melbourne hairpin, Zach, overtaking opportunities being added to this track using the longer layout.
Yeah, so of course we effectively get 2 extra braking zones into the Foggy TSs, maybe not so much, going to be a little bit difficult, but if you can follow quite well, the downhill braking zone of the Melbourne hairpin can really lend itself quite nicely, but also if you are able to keep it on the outside, you've then once again got the inside for Goddard's. Very interesting corner this final one as well, because effectively it is a blind apex going in, very difficult to know when to turn in and things like that, so again it can open the door, but Donington Park is full of overtaking opportunities, especially in very raceable cars like the TCRs. You can just send moves and go for it, especially because they have got that tolerance. A little bit of argy-bargy can slide. So yeah, these guys are always motivated to go for the moves that you maybe wouldn't often think they would, but somehow they manage to pull it off.
And because of that, there's been quite a few penalties over the course of the season, but I believe the only one today was Ryan Elliott getting a 5-place grid penalty after the chaos that was Knockhill. But today at Donington Park we go for the 8th round of the season, 14 laps coming away 3 times, and it's going to be Herlock and Kell on the front row for the first race of the evening. Of course, championship is on the line for Herlock. He needs to gain on Matt Richards starting down in 11th place, but Dan Kell from that 2nd place is generally quite a good start, and he gets a good start once again. He takes the lead already as Herlock drops the way down. He's going to be going all the way down to about 5th, 6th place. We've got cars in the background. I think that's Ben Willis on the grass, 3 wide as we come in towards Redgate for the first time, as McGregor tried to send it up the inside as all the drivers file their way now down through Hollywood and into the Craney Curves.
An appalling start really for Dan Herlock, exactly not what he wanted to do at all. It's now going to be a fight back, especially when Matt Richards from 11th place is now all over the back of him. The championship leader though with a huge slide and a bit of a lock-up actually from the Infinity of Herlock, just able to keep it pointing the right way, but a very chaotic start indeed. Dan Kell early on establishing himself in control of this race, but Thomas O'Leary and of course Callum Wilson not at all going to relieve this pressure anytime soon, and now it's going to be hunkering down because that battle between Herlock and Richards 6th and 7th I'm sure is going to be spicy.
Yeah, lovely start there from Richards. Those are the positions that could be very important. He's got himself out. We always want the TR cars. He's gone all over the back. All over the grass, I should say, coming out at the back end of the circuit. And McLean's there next to his teammates, hopefully not being hit off by teammates. That is rule number 1 in racing. As we come through the Fogsy S's for the first time this season, Dan Kell is leading the way from Thomas O'Leary and Callum Wilson up towards the front of the grid. Of course, the sort of the time management and stuff will be coming into a factor, especially for some of these drivers up the top of the championship. They got so much weight, especially for the likes of Matt Richards. Of course, he's got 75 kilos of ballast for the virtue of leading the championship. But as you come around the final corner for the final for the first time this evening, it looks like it's going to be remaining stable. But actually, is that Ross McGregor trying to get a run onto the front straight?
Might well be. He's going to be looking to move his way potentially onto the podium place, looking to go side by side. You can see Wilson goes defensive. The Rocket Sim Sport car of McGregor tries to go the long way around, but it is thwarted. Then of course you've got the other Calamity Ford Focus of London, who's trying to find his way through and get himself involved in this fight. Meanwhile, sort of Herlock and Richards reel themselves back into this battle. The more they fight, the more the drivers behind are reeled in, battling their way through the Craner Curve. So much fun as a lock of the rears going through the old hairpin from Ross McGregor. Fair play that he's managed to hang on to that.
Lovely front wheel drive save there, smashing the throttle, keeping it in line, and just using the the advantage of the physics to play sort of to his favour there. But unfortunately, they've lost a little bit of time now to Wilson, top 3, starting to get away by a few car lengths. I don't want to be getting those gaps too much. Or London missing the apex there just a little bit. As we go back to Jeff Fournier on his debut this season for the YTF racing car, getting himself up inside the top 10 in the first couple of laps. Here's Scott Cervic trying to go round the outside. Potentially that's going to be into the Fogarty S's, as that's Matt Richards actually who'll dive up the inside of him. Oh, huge contact between the two as we're getting cars go around. I think that's Herlock is involved there, and or one of the other cars as well. Unfortunately, dropping down the way, Jack London was the other car to get involved there. That's an absolute calamities for them as all the number 18 machine is going sliding off the track as all things are starting to happen on the second lap.
Yeah, it's absolute carnage going into the final half of the second lap here. That is absolutely insane. You can see Jeffrey Fournier trying to go the long way round of the championship leader. Of course, Matt Richards, after Herlock's incident, needs to try and gain as many points as he possibly can, but he's losing a place. He's down to 6th now as Fournier catapults himself up in a 5th place in that Hyundai. And then also you've got Scott Sovic looking to the inside of Matt Richards as well. So Richards really, I suppose, shaken up by that just the calamity that ensued. We'll take another look at it, and absolute insane stuff. This is Johannes Leppert, of course, just by himself and teammates. It's not great.
I did mention, I was like, oh, hopefully he did make contact with his teammate, but unfortunately he did there, left it going around. I was back on the first lap, and now back to lap 3. And Fournier from 11th place at the end of the first lap has got himself up into 5th thanks to the carnage that ensued just up ahead of him. He's got Cervic now in behind him, who's also up from about 13th place. Really good stuff for the Ballas Esport driver as well. He's got a run out of McLean's, potentially looking up towards Coppice, but not enough to make a move this time around. But certainly some big movers already. Matt Richards still up into 7th place somehow after that big contact. Let's see. So this is Cervic on the outside. He's got Herlog almost trying to hold up Richards. Richards hits the back of Herlog. Then Herlog is going to slide over the chicane and unfortunately collect Jack London, who could do absolutely nothing about that. So in the end, Richards actually sort of got away with it, and I think he was the one potentially starting out with the contact.
Yeah, I would say so. Of course, into the foggy TS, there's not really an overtaken opportunity. What one is, though, is the Melbourne hairpin. A bit of a send in the background. I think Thomas Fack trying to send his way through. I think he's sort of said, nah, that was not too fair. So he's backed off and let Callum Critz back through. But the fight between Fournier and Sovic and Richards continues on this three-way fight towards the front end of this train. The fight for 5th, of course, it's continuing to be very argy-bargy in the background. The RSR cars are battling away. Also, the likes of Dan Hurlock trying to fight his way back through. Ryan Elliott in the mix also. Look at that insane squeeze to the inside of Redgate. Absolutely crazy stuff just ahead of Cito Vaya, and then this fight still. Jeffrey Fournier just sat idle behind the two in front, waiting for his chance to strike. In a pack race like this, it's essentially just a bit of a game of luck. You've just got to be so composed trying to deal with all the carnage.
Certainly doing. The issue for Richards, as we mentioned a couple laps ago, he's got so much weight, even though he might have, some would say, like a skill advantage, a such speed advantage, he can't use that in this race because of that ballast, and that's why he gets held up in this mid part of the pack. That's why this first race is so difficult for the drivers up towards the top of the championship with all that weight they've got. So you've got a bit of a battle a bit further down, actually. This is Dowman in 23rd place. He's got Morris ahead. He's got Bennyworth in behind. So that quarter-mass car, of course, on his debut this season, which I've shown you that the battles continue even lower down in the field, and Dowman actually might get a bit of a run there as he comes out onto the back straight here through Starkeys, but isn't going to be able to make a move, I don't think. But to the front, someone who might be able to make a move, as Dowman does complete that one, is potentially we're getting Dan Kell and Thomas O'Leary having a battle for the lead. Yeah, of course, good to note that Thomas O'Leary has taken his option race, this one. Of course, the softer compound tyre used in race 1, and look at this. This is absolutely insane. There are cars absolutely everywhere. Stephen Haney looking to try and go the way, long way round of Lewis Redshaw. He's looking very strong. A bit of carnage in the background, as well as potentially 3 or maybe even 4 wide, I saw at one point. They've settled into just the 2 RSR cars, but it's insanity, Cam. I don't really know who to call. Yeah, I think that was Vac trying to get out of the way of his teammate Ryan Elliott. They've also got Willis involved there as well. Loads of cars. Oh, huge contact. Oh, no. Off goes Vac. Contact with Willis coming out of Redgate down through the second corner of Hollywood. And unfortunately, he's been off into the grass. And he didn't seem to be able to catch that one, unfortunately dropping to the back of the pack. But the battles continue further up as well as Richard tries to hold on to his 5th place. Cervic is all over the back. BMW on BMW action as Carl Coppice out once again onto the back straight, longest straight on the calendar. Oh, we're losing a rear wing there for Hartley. He looks like a normal car. That doesn't look like a race car anymore without the rear wing. He's going to be struggling to the end of the race like that. He definitely is. That is not going to be great, of course, not going to be producing a lot of grip, but this fight for 5th is, looking to be a very good one. Matt Richards, of course, as we say, battling with 75 kilograms of championship ballast, but doing a really good job of keeping Scott Sovic at bay, who's very aggressive on the brake pedal. He's trying to go the long way around, just goes in a little bit too deep, tries to get the rotation with a rear-wheel drive, though, bites it back and could have a little bit of a look maybe into the Goddard's hairpin. Not quite close enough, I don't think, on this particular occasion, but it is easy to overlook that ballast because you think of it as, it can't make that big of a difference, but trust me, it does. Even in the real one, I told you I was obviously getting my toolbox from Halfords today, Cam. I put that in the back of my car. Honestly, it felt so much heavier, and that's a toolbox in a Mark IV Golf on the road, right? Imagine 75 kilos added to these touring cars in R Factor 2. That's going to be insane. That was really a reality check for me. I even thought, I was like, this is what they must feel like when they've got ballast in their car. Like, it genuinely felt so much more sluggish. So yeah, I can really emphasise with Matt Richards now. He must be, really ragging that car out. There's a funny analogy, the old Halfords toolbox in the back of the car. I mean, it is a good one though, because the best way actually to describe it is literally the word you said, is sluggish. The car in the corners, it'll be because of the weight of the cars already, it's not going to be too much terrible, but especially just on the initial exit out of the corners, it doesn't have that punch as you've got all that extra weight to lug around. And I remember speaking to Richards in the interview a couple of races ago, really talking about that. There's just no acceleration compared to those with no ballast. But these two, despite their battles, they dropped Jeff Fournier in behind, and they're starting to sort of lose that midfield battle. But the issue is they've lost the cars ahead. That is too deep though for Richards. Can Cervic get any sort of a run down towards the Melbourne hairpin? Of course, we've got the hybrid in the car as well this year. They've got that push to pass button. They can have a bit of a splash of energy potentially to try and make the move. But of course, Richards can use it in defence as well.
Yeah, he can. That's the great thing about the push to pass. It's not exclusively just a push to pass. You can use it to defend as well. It's just extra energy that you can use, especially sort of in a situation like Richards' perspective, where he is going to need as much as he can, going to be deploying as much as he can per lap in order to keep Cervic at bay. I think 5th place is going to be his ceiling. He has got to be careful though, because of course he has got Fournier, Cripps, Churgwin, you know, that long train in behind. That if him and Cervic continue to battle, they will very easily be reeled into this battle. So Richards has got to be quite mindful of that, but I suppose he has got sort of a big margin for error essentially, because Herlock is down in 11th place. So Richards has got a nice little bit of a security buffer in play, so much so that, you know, 5th or 6th not going to make a huge difference to him. Of course he'd like to keep 5th, but out and out it's not going to make a huge difference for him, especially if it means that he doesn't have to contend with anyone behind him. But he's not giving this up easy at all. That run into McLean and Scott Cervic is putting Richards under a ton of pressure.
Yeah, Cervic definitely has the speed up that hill through the Schwanz curve, but unfortunately hasn't been able to make a move at that part of the track so far. And as we're halfway through this first race, Richards is really defending so well, all the way to the inside, coming down the back straight towards the Foxy S's, and once again Cervic has to sit in behind him. One thing you sometimes forget as well, that Foxy S's, they are actually quite tight, and there's big track limit infringements as well, so you've got to be very careful, very precise through that part of the track. We come a little bit further back as we've got Cripps leading this train. We've got Chogwin, huge send up the inside from Herlock. It's going to be on the Cedar Vire car there, representing Rocket Simsport at this moment in time, with a Haley all over the back of them as well. Up towards the final corner, up the inside is going to be there for the 87 machine. Can he hold on to that one? No, he goes a little bit wide. Up and under goes the Rocket Simsport car, gets the run onto the front straight.
Beautiful move there from the Rocket Simsport car. Dan Herlock, he tried his best to cover it off, but couldn't quite park it enough on the apex, which means that, of course, the Rocket Simsport car is going to go the long way round via. It has been able to get that move stuck. They're close to contact, and the acceleration from the RSR machine has been able to pull himself back ahead. Of course, via not really much that he could have done in terms of putting the power down, especially on the outside run through Redgate. He's going to have to settle in behind, but a fantastic battle materialising here, especially now we've got the Honda Civic of Haley and Redshaw as well, just in the background fighting their way into contention. They're also not a million miles away from Cripps and Churgwin, only less than a second off the two in front, so plenty more to fight for as we are into the second half of this race. Oh, what more could we see? And I'm almost certain we're going to see more carnage.
Yeah, and one thing you have to remember as well, the result of this race is the grid for the next race. So any position you can get now is basically a free quali position as such for the next race. So that is another reason, another incentive to fight for these places. You start higher up in the next race. Oh, Richards goes a bit wide there on the exit of the Foxy S's. He's pushing. He's trying to hold on. Cervic to the outside once again. Can't find his way to the inside line. And Cervic putting on all of the pressure to your reigning champion, but can't find a way through at this moment in time. So you come back to this battle. Haley up the inside there is going to be on fire all over the grass, I think it was, for the DMA driver. Up now the inside potentially in towards Goddard's, but not this time around, as Vire is holding on very nicely there in his season debut.
He's doing a really good job, of course, stepping in for Tobias Blumschein, and yeah, in all fairness to him, really adjusting quite well, because it's a very interesting environment for the VMO TCUK. These guys are ruthless, and you have to be really confident in your driving. You have to be really aggressive if you want to survive. It's, hunt or be hunted sometimes. Matt Richards, of course, versus Scott Sovic. This battle continuing on. The Ballas Esports car trying to get the up and under through the old hairpin. Of course, you may have noticed at the top of the timing tower, there has been a change for the lead between Thomas O'Leary and Dan Kell, between the two of them. There's now a 3-second gap. We've got Matt Richards, of course, versus Scott Sovic. Still a bit of a snap from the BMW. But the thing is, Cam, is that, yes, there's a bit of ballast, but they're both in the same car, both in the BMW. So it's not exactly like there's a huge overarching advantage purely from the chassis choice.
Yeah, I'd say in general, the BOP and the equality of the cars is actually pretty good. But as you say, even then when you go to the exact same chassis, there's no complaints about that. They've got absolutely everything identical. Of course, they do have the setup that can be changed. They can change the dampers, the springs, the ride heights, that sort of stuff to have a bit more control of the car potentially. But yeah, realistically, they are using the same machine. And so they're just getting a little bit of a power slide on the exit there. He really is pushing to try and get on the back of Richards as we come to 5 laps remaining in this first race of the evening. Remember, we have 2 more races to go. Second race, the grid is from the result of this one, and then for the third race, we get a reverse grid as well. Servic gets the run down this front straight, trying to find a gap up the inside, using that hybrid power. Richards goes to the outside to try and defend, but it's going to be 5th place in the end for Scott Servic after he just slides his way and just about gets the gap. Richards not happy about that one, flashing his headlights.
Yeah, that was laps upon laps in the making. Sovic was waiting for an opportunity like that. He saw the gap, he pushed the button, and he found his way through. Richard tried his best to be on the outside, but unfortunately to no avail. He's going to have to sit back in 6th and maybe try and launch a counter-attack, unless Sovic has just got so much more pace in the locker to pull away and extend that gap. Matt Richards might struggle to get himself back inside the top 5. Hopefully that battle continues though, because that was 2 drivers giving their absolute all. Bit of a slide just ahead of Dan Hurlock as well. That is of course Matthew Churgwin. A little bit of a power slide on the exit of McLean's into Coppice now, but still not major. Well, definitely not major enough to see him lose the place to Hurlock. But of course riding on board with Cedarville, looking back at Stephen Haley as well. This is of course the fight for 11th place. They're just nose to tail, Cam, and this pack racing is almost reminiscent of sort of top level karting, where you've just got so many groups of cars nose to tail. It's a really difficult dynamic to be a part of, because you have to race so differently.
Yeah, you certainly do, and there's not much sort of dirty air and that sort of stuff, so you can sit really close behind some cars. Here's Jack London, of course, getting sent off earlier. Absolutely not his fault, unfortunately, for that one. Here's Lewis Redshaw. He's got up very nicely, remember, from the back of the grid, literally the last driver on the grid, and now is up into 13th place, although he has been there for a few laps now and has stabilised a little bit, but he's trying to find a way past. Look at all the cars up ahead of him. First, he's got Haley, then up ahead of that, we've got Vira and Churwin going side by side in towards Redgate in the first corner. I think Churwin's going to find his way through. Haley's trying to go through as well, trying to get a double overtake there on the Rocky Simswell car, and I think he's going to be able to find his way through. Yes, he has, as now Lewis Redshaw sees an opportunity to get his BMW through as well, side by side, potentially through the craning curves. Not quite this time around, but certainly Vira starting to go backwards a little bit down the train.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, it's just not been the last couple of laps that he would have wanted, which, again, in pack racing like this, it is just a negative feedback loop. These guys thrive on vulnerability. As soon as you get overtaken once, you lose that rhythm, you lose that momentum, and then you can lose 1, 2, 3, essentially however many people are in the train, you can lose that many places unless you regain yourself, recoup, and get your composure back quite quickly, which thankfully for Vi, he has been able to, and now just needs to sort of collect himself and go again. Unfortunately for him, there's not a lot of time left in this race to do that. We are about to round off lap 11 on to 12, which gives us 3 more laps of racing action, 12, 13 and 14, which, when you think about it, really isn't a lot of time, especially when we've seen, you know, battles this race that have spanned the entire race so far. You know, 3 laps, it's not that long to do anything overly meaningful, but definitely enough if you want to go for a late send.
Yeah, it is obviously one of the longer circuits, but there's definitely plenty of overtaking opportunities if you can find your way through. And as ever, who has kept their tyres in check for the final couple of laps? You can definitely overheat them if you start pushing too much. In the background, we've got Willis there, almost defending a little bit from Ryan Elliott, who's dropped his way down. Elliott's teammate Vac is out of this race. He's the DNF alongside Phil Garside, the 2 DNFs of this opening race of the evening so far. Hopefully we don't get any more, but there's some close battles out there on the track. We've got Chobin and Haley coming up now down towards the old hairpin, trying to find their way through. Looks like Chobin just got a little bit of a gap, a couple of car lengths as they come up the hill once more. This is the final couple of opportunities for them to hold on to these positions, and of course we'll be starting there for the second race. Haley sliding it into McLean's, losing a little bit of time, 4-wheel drift, as guys try and focus on potentially these battles up up ahead of them as well, as Fournier is slowing down. He's now got Cripps coming on to the back of him.
The debutant of this season. Fournier maybe not too adjusted with the tyre temps or anything like that. Maybe he's overcooked them too soon. You can see Callum Cripps picks his way through up into 7th place. Fournier maybe looking to go on the counter-attack immediately. You've also got Dan Hurlock in the mix trying to minimise the points deficit. They're going to be 3 wide into the braking zone. A lock up there. Dan Hurlock goes the long way round, but it's late on the brakes from Cripps. The up and under from Jeffrey Fournier. They could see him regain that 7th place. That fight towards Goddard's now. You can see Cripps not taking any chances, but brings it back to the racing line there, nose to tail, 7th, 8th and 9th. Cripps, Fournier and Hurlock onto the penultimate lap of this race. Absolutely insane racing, but yeah, potentially Fournier's sort of lack of experience this season coming back to bite him. Maybe he's pushed too hard too soon.
Maybe we will see, because he has dropped down. I think it was about 5th place he got up to, but he's slowly been dropping down. Cervic has got ahead of Matt Richards for that 5th place, as well as Callum Cripps now, the 3 drivers to get past Fournier, have dropped him down. But of course, he's got Hurlock now, who will be trying to get past on these final couple of laps. Here is your podium battle, though, as it stands. You've got Dan Kell in 2nd place, but Wilson in 3rd is chasing him down. They've dropped quite a long way, almost 5 seconds to Thomas O'Leary, but it looks like it's now just going to be a 2-way battle here. Can Dan Kell hold on? Of course, pole position driver so far this season. He's got the speed in that car, but has he got enough to hold on in the final 2 laps?
That is the question. He's got to be very careful. Of course, Dan Kell, he's notorious for being in control. He loves being in control. Dan Hurlock loves at points positions, especially on a day where Matt Richards is in 6th. If he can get himself into at least 8th, I mean, he's only going to be losing a couple of points. What's that going to be? 10 points for Hurlock, 8 points. 10 points for Richards, 8 points for Hurlock if he's able to get himself up ahead of Fournier, which is only a 2-point swing, which is not a lot at all when you think about it, which means he is going to be late on the brakes. Callum Wilson gets himself up ahead of Dan Kell as well in the fight for 2nd. Beautiful racing onto the final lap.
Yeah, this is a final opportunity now for these drivers, and potentially we're going to see some sends on this final lap. Let's have a look how this one is going to work. But on to that final lap we go. Hurlock, of course, leads the way in that battle now with Fournier. I don't think Fournier's got to look at his mirrors too much, because there is a little bit of a gap to Churgwin there for that 10th place. But Redshaw is now up into that P11. Willis as well has got past Cedar Vire. Vire really starting to drop down. I wonder if he has struggled with his tyres potentially in this race. Now, Ryan Elliott is now going to be having the run in that P14. He's potentially, should have been higher up in the championship so far, but just struggling a little bit today as we come now down in towards the old hairpin. Can't seem to quite get close enough. Bit of a slide though for Vire. That could be the opportunity for Elliott to get the run up the hill as we come through the Schwartz curve. Is there going to be any sort of run for the RSR driver? Maybe not quite this time round, but he's closing down the gap.
He is. He's looking for something, anything into the final half of the final lap. Thomas O'Leary has completely dominated this race since getting himself ahead of Dan Kell. Of course, you potentially would expect so, being on the softer option tyre. He's needed to make the most of this race. He's done exactly that, and he will be extending his win tally this season. He's been on a very good run of form. One more corner left to go. Thomas O'Leary will take race 1.
He certainly will. Dominant drivers. Oh, there's a car off in the background there, but we'll ignore that for a moment as Thomas O'Leary comes across the line to win the first race of the evening here at Donington Park GP, with Wilson in 2nd place and Dan Kell unfortunately dropping down to 3rd there on that final lap, just not having enough to hold on. Ross McGregor will get 4th place, got Cervic in 5th, but what we're going to see in these final couple of opportunities, Dan Hurlock, he's obviously got Fournier, but he couldn't quite in the end get Callum Cripps. There's Cedar Vire, he'll finish in 13th place at the end of it, and here's now Sam Dowman in 18th place, making up a few positions. He's got Jack London just up ahead. We had some other DNFs. Bennyworth and Hilton have gone out as a DNF. Adam Christopher as well. Hartley's been a lap down, so definitely a few more accidents in the final couple of laps of this 14-lap race to start the evening. And of course, we saw a huge crash just a little bit earlier in the race as well. London involved, all the 2 TR cars having a bit of a battle in towards Fogarty. It looks like Scott Morris is going to be finding a way through Leppit, potentially down in towards the Melbourne hairpin. Contact, door rubbing between the teammates, but Leppit just holding on to that one. Oh no, he doesn't know. He spins up the rear, and unfortunately he's losing that place to his teammate Scott Morris.
Yeah, he is. A fight between the teammates, of course, changed in chassis, so a little bit of an adjustment between the two of them to sort of be made. You can see they have been sliding around a little bit, but they will cross the line in 19th and 20th for TR, powered by Geeks Energy. and it's not maybe been the switch that they would have wanted. They, of course, forfeited all of their points to make the chassis swap, but I have to say, very entertaining race one.
Absolutely. Thomas O'Leary taking victory. Callum Wilson and Dan Kell round out your podium. Ross McGregor and Scott Cervic in the top 5. Matt Richards, championship leader, having a solid race there, getting up to P7 on that first lap and eventually finishing P6. His teammate Cripps just in behind P7, and Dan Herlock, his championship rival of Matt Richards, in 8th place, losing a couple more points. Fournier and Cherguin round out your top 10 after 14 laps of action. Lewis Redshaw from the back gets up into 11th place. Ben Willis finishes in 12th. Cedar Vire in 14th. Cedar Vire 13th. Ryan Elliott 14th. Cam Brewster in 15th place. Stephen Haley, Jack London, Sam Dowman, Scott Morris, and Johannes Leppit round out your top 20. Before we see some DNFs, we've got Ben Bennyworth and Anthony Hilton inside your top 22. Louis Hartley actually finished a lap down in the end. He was the driver, I think, running with no rear wing after that big crash earlier. Adam Christopher, Phil Garside, and Thomas Vack round out your top 26 for this first race of the evening. Of course, got race 2 coming your way. The grid will be the results that you have just seen, but ballast changing to the top 10. Loads of action still to come here at Donington. We'll see you in a few minutes. And welcome back to Donington Park for the 8th round of the VMO TCUK 2023 season. We just had the first race of the evening, Thomas O'Leary taking the victory that time around. Myself, Cameron Roger, and Zach Sweeney in the commentary booth with Mike Yao of Simply Race on the production behind the scenes as well. And Zach, as we warm up to race 2 in just a few moments' time, are we going to expect more of the same, which was a little bit of carnage?
Yes. Short answer, yes, absolutely. If you are only now just joining us, of course, go back and watch race 1 if you have a moment to, because it was very interesting. We had a fight for the lead, fight for the podium, very important championship implications as well, with, of course, Matt Richards and Dan Hurlock coming together going into the Fogarty S's, which was a huge moment for the championship. In the end, they only had a 2-point differential based on their finishing positions, which I suppose isn't too bad for Hurlock, but yeah, still would want to be gaining over the course of this evening, which I'm sure he's going to be hungry for. And, well, different people, of course, taking their option tyre this one. Of note is Matt Richards. He's going to be taking his option in race 2. So let's see what he can do from his place on the grid.
But here's the grid for race 2. O'Leary, Wilson, Kell and Ross McGregor on your front 2 rows. Of course, this is now the result from race 1, but the ballast for your top 10. Cervic, followed by Richards, Cripps and Hurlock round out your top 8. So the drivers like Matt Richards now, he's going to have a lot less ballast than he had in that first race. Can he make any further progress? Fournier in 9th place, Churban in 10th, Redshaw and Wilson inside your top 12. So Lewis Redshaw, your first driver without any ballast. Let's see what he can do as well. Cedar Vile, let's hope he can learn time management just a little bit for this middle race, with Ryan Elliott in 14th place, Cam Brewster in 15th and Stephen Haley rounding out your top 16. Jack London will be hoping not to get punted in the Fogarty S's this race, with Sam Dowman in 18th place. Scott Morris and Johannes Leppert will be trying to avoid each other and making more contact in this race as well. Ben Bennyworth in 21st place, with Tom Schvack in 22nd. Adam Christopher in 23rd, with Phil Garside in 24th place. And of course, It's going to be a very tight race as ever. It's going to be difficult for some of these drivers to try and leap all the way up the field. But what we generally see, Zach, in this race is obviously now the top three in this race, they've got so much ballast, they might start falling back, and then we see some drivers and maybe a surprise winner get this race too.
Yeah, for sure. This is obviously where things start to really spice up, because obviously those just outside the top 10, especially maybe even Lewis Redshaw, he's on the softer compounded tyre, he's looking quick, he is a very quick driver. Could he fight his way forward with the entirety of the top 10 having their respective ballast? Be interesting to see what Thomas O'Leary can do from the lead. He's no stranger to defending and hanging on to race wins and things. I think back to Croft, of course, where he took back-to-back wins over the course of race 1 and race 2. So who knows? Thomas O'Leary, his pace is looking very good. He might be able to do it again and surprise. I'd probably say that's an even bigger surprise if Thomas O'Leary is able to take it back-to-back.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do so, basically because of this ballast, because generally you win race 1 because obviously the championship rivals are back somewhere because they've got the ballast in qualifying, so you get the grid position and then you have less weight than them in the race. But that situation reverses. Now we've got the likes of Thomas O'Leary. He's got a lot more ballast than the likes of Matt Richards in that P6, or even Dan Herlock in P8, so it's going to be definitely an interesting one for him. But O'Leary did get the race victory in race 1 and 2 at Croft a couple of rounds ago. Let's see what is going to happen though. Race 2 of the evening, another 14 laps of racing action coming your way. O'Leary and Wilson on that front row as the lights go out. The second race gets underway, and unfortunately Wilson does get the best start there. We've got Dan Kell already coming up in towards second place. Cervic trying to get himself up the inside as well of Ross McGregor for that third place as they all go side by side. 3-4 wide is going to be in towards turn number 1. Can everyone keep it out the grass this time around as one of the BMWs there being pushed off just about in the background. Oh, huge send once again from the TR cars, as for 2 races in a row they go off on lap 1.
Yeah, not great at all, and really trying to bed themselves into the new chassis. Bit of a lock-up as well going into the old hairpin. That was very close, nearly into the side, but everyone settling for the most part nicely into this race. Ross McGregor under a little bit of pressure from Matt Richards, of course, who are all trying to fight their way forwards. The BMW goes to the outside going through McLean's. He's actually been able to keep his foot, and there's a little bit of contact as McGregor gives him the squeeze. Dan Kell immediately on the attack relative to Thomas O'Leary. Outside line as they run their way through Coppice. We've got 4 cars nose to tail fighting for the lead, potentially going side by side. Dan Kell unfortunately not been able to keep level pegging with Thomas O'Leary, who's now able to defend going into the Fogger TSs.
O'Leary's going to really struggle to win this race, isn't he? With that 75 kilos of ballast for winning that first race. But of course the drivers behind also have ballast, just a little bit less. So they should have a little bit of an advantage. Also the soft tyres from McGregor, Richards, Herlock, they're going to be coming in fast. Well, huge send down the inside for Herlock. 2 places he's going to get with quite a bit of contact as McGregor is getting sent out as well. Now Scott Cervic is coming. That's certainly an aggressive move as now Dan Kell for the race lead up the inside into Goddard's on the final corner of this first lap, as O'Leary's going to have to back out to that one into second place. But it's Dan Herlock with the huge send at the end of that lap to get himself on the podium.
Yeah, Dan Herlock really making some good moves, trying to recover after losing points to his championship rival in race 1. Bit of a send there in the background. I think it might be Ross McGregor on the inside of Scott Sovic. Indeed it is. He's later on the brakes. He has got the position for now, but on that outside run you can see the BMW, and then of course Lewis Redshaw trying to thread the needle through the middle. They're going to be 3 right down the hill through the grainer curves, and off the road goes Scott Sovic. Is he going to be able to keep the car on the road? He's going to cut his way across the grass, losing maybe, 3 places. He's going to settle back in 10th, and luckily not take anyone else with him.
Yeah, that had the opportunity to be a massive crash, but unfortunately he seems to be okay in the end. Herlock now trying to go for that second place, but he's let Matt Richards get the run, but unfortunately Richards hits the back of the Hondas. Richards, look how aggressive he's being with his championship rival. More contact between the two, as they know this is of course a battle for third place, but it's also a battle for the championship, and if Richards can keep on finishing ahead of Herlock, then of course Herlock is never going to catch him down. So it's the tense times here at the front, as O'Leary's just trying to hold on for second place. Lock up again for Richards, sends it up the inside of the Fox TS's, gets the switch back and should have the inside line down towards Melbourne. But now we're getting McGregor coming back. He was of course forced off by Herlock, so he's going to have a bit of tension involved as well. McGregor hits the back of Richards in towards the Melbourne hairpin. There's all sorts of carnage as goes through Herlock. He's spun around. The championship rival of Matt Richards is spun around as Thomas O'Leary goes around as well. It's all change here at Donington Park.
hero to zero moment is threading the needle on the through the middle as Matt Richards, Lewis Redshaw fighting his way through. That's the fight for second. Dan Keller has got absolutely no clue what's going on. He has completely tried to run away into the distance, but that fight for second, you can see ducking and diving, searching for the gap as Lewis Redshaw. He's going to have to go to the outside through Redgate. You can see now Jeffrey Fournier has managed to get himself into the mix. Ross McGregor picks his way through to fourth. I have to say that is such a shame for Dan Harlock, because that was essentially such a good move, that up and under, getting back underneath the cars that set themselves wide, unfortunately just to end himself in the barrier. A bit of a lock-up from Redshaw as well, but yeah, a huge shame, it must be said, for Harlock. That's just bad luck, 2 races in a row.
Yeah, of course, he was being aggressive as well. So that, of course, changes the way that other drivers race back to you. So, of course, Matt Richards was being aggressive back to him, but unfortunately, Herlock there just getting spun around. He obviously had the inside line, but he was coming to the left. So, again, unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to be able to get a replay of that, but if we were, I think we would see Herlock, of course, coming across, and Richards obviously being squeezed out. But unfortunately, it was O'Leary who was on the left-hand side of Richards as well, because they were effectively 3 wide at that point. He obviously went off and lost some places from that, and is really going to struggle at that point. But back to the race at hand. Got Scott Cervic here in that 12th place after going off the track a little bit early. He's got Jack London in front of him, but he's also got Sam Dowman coming up the inside of him now in towards the Melbourne chicane. He's in the background. We've also got Churgwin. Oh, that's way too deep though for Dowman. He's completely lost. Churgwin goes through, as well as Phil Garside. Yeah,
that was way too down the brakes, but he's actually merged himself 3 wide as there's a squeeze. We cut away probably at the perfect time for them to not see the carnage that unfolds. Back to this fight though, Jeffrey Fournier trying to get himself onto the back of Ross McGregor. Lewis Redshaw and Matt Richards still battling away over second place. Richards able to fight his way forward, which is a really, really good result for him if he's able to keep it. Dan Cole just trying to stay in control. Sam Dowman now in the middle of 2 cars, one trying to go to the inside, one trying to go to the outside. There's a little bit of contact. He's sent wide once more and he loses yet another place, and now unfortunately finds himself behind Stephen Haley.
Another, huge contact coming down through the Craner curves there. Can they keep it in a straight line? No, they can't. The 8 car's going to go off into the barrier, unfortunately there for Sam Dowman, as that was Vac having an absolute send there through the Craner curves. Unfortunately, just spinning around Dowman, he seems actually to be getting on the grass, although also on the grass is Brewster. He goes off pretty much on his own, as I think Vac here might be waiting up for Dowman, because he's slowed down quite a lot. Obviously feeling like he needs to give that position back, but he will be waiting a long time with how much Dowman lost with that one. We come back to the front of the field though. Fournier also on those soft compound tyres making some moves. He's up inside the top 5 as the battle continue once again through Garside, following Adam Christopher into the Fox ESS.
Yeah, very, very close nose to tail stuff, and well, just sheer pack racing. Aidan Millwood again is going to have a very, I'm not going to say fun day, because even sarcastically it's not true. He's not going to be enjoying the flood of reports that I'm sure is going to be coming in from the stewards' inquiries. And yeah, it's been very exciting carnage, let's put it that way. 10 laps to go, of course, in race number 2, and we've still got battles up and down, especially as Matt Richards is bit by bit clawing away at that gap that Dan Kell was able to build. Now down to 2.5 seconds. Richards has to be careful, of course, on the softer tyre. He doesn't want to burn through it too quickly, even if he's able to close that gap.
Yeah, certainly got to be holding on to them. The option are, of course, the one tyre you have to use. But down the hill, side by side, is going to be Sidovar on the outside. And of course, you've got Jack London, a bit of contact between the two. Var's going to have the inside for the odd hairpin. So London backs out to that one, although he's going to be having a slow exit because of that, as the Ford machine tries to come all the way around the outside of the Toyota, potentially using some hybrid. Look at the run that Jack London has got through Schwann's. He's going to be making up that position as we now come in towards McLean's, as Var now tries to get the up and under up the inside of Coppice. Not always the overtaking opportunity, but certainly working out for London that time around. But yeah, of course, the soft being the option tyre, so you use the soft for one race and then the primes for the other 2. And it's obviously you can choose when you do that, and the choice of that could be very important, because if that lines up with when your ballast is there, you could potentially have a really fast race.
Sure, I think you just sort of have to, see which races you want to do better in. For Richards, he, obviously is going to be, for a championship leader, let's say, they're going to be carrying more ballast into race 1, so maybe he needs to sacrifice that a little bit to then come back for race 2, but then if you do better in race 2, you're then doing worse in race 3, which means you've then got race 1 and race 3, which you sort of sacrifice for one good race. Whereas if you go for a strong race 1, you then fall back a bit in race 2 and potentially then come forwards again in race 3 with a little bit less ballast. So it's just sort of weighing up which races you want to be strong in. And again, it's sometimes a bit of a luck of the draw, but also you have got to be strategical with it because you've only got a limited amount of uses per race that you use options. So of course they only have sort of a select number of times they can select race 1 as their option, select race 2 as their option, select race 3 as their option. So they do have to mix and match. They can't just stay at one race throughout the season, which does promote some interesting strategical calls, and drivers of course being able to to throw us some surprises as different drivers are going to be quicker at different points in the season. But we still have the consistent lot at the top, which is why Matt Richards is the one leading the championship.
Yeah, ultimately with this format, the consistency is how you win it. It's not just, you don't have to win every race. You don't even have to be on the podium every race. But if you're consistently in, say, that top 5 every race, even on the difficult days, then that is very good and looking nice for the championship. Of course, 3 races per round, and 10 rounds means a total of 30 races. That's a lot of lap ones. That's a lot of last lap lunges. There's a lot of times you're close to cars, and all sorts of things can happen. And as well, if you add up the amount of kilometers over the course of the race distance, is a big challenge to win this title. Down the inside of Churquin, that's going to be Phil Garside though in the background, finding a way through, but also finding a way through maybe. It's going to be Matt Richards up to the front of the race. It could be for your championship leader, Dan Kell, to the outside on those medium tyres, and of course slightly more weight as well than Matt Richards, who's going to take the race lead here for the second race at the halfway distance. Yeah,
good stuff from Matt Richards, and well, what a race he's had so far. Dan Kell not really been able to fight that one too much, of course, with Richards being on the softer tyre and carrying slightly less ballast as well. And of course, being Matt Richards, he's just so much quicker at this stage. And yes, Dan Kell's been able to match Richards at a number of occasions. With all things considered, yeah, I think Richards is going to be the stronger of the two. But that's not to say Dan Kell can't come back over the course of race 3. Ben Willis trying to move his way up ahead of Callum Cripps, who is given a bit of a squeeze in this fight for 6. You can see the Cupra is searching for the inside line going through the fence, but not quite close enough to go for the move. He has got to be careful though, because Thomas O'Leary is now on his case. We've got 3 cars fighting for 6th place as we approach the halfway point of this race.
We certainly are, and this is a nice 3-way battle. And these are the points that could be quite crucial for the likes of O'Leary. If he could somehow get back in that battle and fight with Willis and Cripps, that could be crucial for him as we get a yellow flag in sector 2. Hopefully it hasn't been a big crash. We have seen a few of them today, but yeah, of course, O'Leary this time around with that weight just needs to hold on to the back of these guys, and he should be okay because the gap behind is really big, almost 5 seconds to Callum Wilson. Up the inside though, it might be for O'Leary, not quite on the exit actually, but Willis was going in there just a little bit deep. This is a strong race from Willis. Of course, swapping chassis to that Cooper, lost all of his points up until Croft, and is doing a decent race since he's got in that. But so far he's only scored, the most points he's scored in one race is 10 so far. Let's see what he can do. Up the inside potentially of Redgate is going to be huge send down the inside. Couldn't quite make that move stick as Cripps holds on to that place, but O'Leary might have a run down the hill.
Yeah, indeed. So, of course, this could well be the fight for pole in race 3. Of course, we get the spinny wheel, and it ranges from P6 in race 2 all the way up to P12 in race 2 as the reverse grid. So you never really know what you're fighting for. So I suppose you just have to, get as high as you can. And if they are able to get into 6th place, boom, happy days. You could well get yourself onto pole position. But also, 7th and 8th, if it is a top 6 reverse, and you're half a second off 6th place, you are essentially half a second off pole position. So I suppose that's always something to be keeping in the back of their minds, like, it's something worthwhile to push for, not only for the extra couple of points, but also that track position going into the final race. So Cripps is going to be eager to hang on to that as much as he possibly can, and well, he's going to have to be trying very hard to do so, because Ben Willis and Thomas O'Leary both are going to be quite relentless in the final stages of this race. But then again, saying that, maybe they're able to close the battle to Fournier for 5th.
Potentially, or also actually maybe a move here for Willis once again, looking to the inside, but once again can't find a way through. Maybe on the exit actually there's a little bit of contact between the two. Wonder if Willis could have got the run potentially up the hill in towards the final corner. Around the outside is going to be though in towards Goddard's. Cripps on the inside, but around the outside goes Ben Willis. It's going to be a lovely move. Can he get the traction on the exit? Just about contact between the two. He's going to have to use his push to pass, have a bit of a run down towards Redgate this time around as well. Thomas O'Leary just sitting there quietly in the background as well. Willis up the inside there in that Cupra machine up into P6 as Cripps is just going to lose the place. But also here comes Thomas O'Leary this time around, might get the run It's going to be very tricky side by side, giving each other space. Quite a narrow part of the track, all the way around the outside of the crane of curves. I think the BMW is just going to have enough to hold on.
Yeah, Thomas O'Leary not quite able to go late enough on the brakes, and well, probably the wiser of the two decisions to go for that. And Callum Cripps is always sort of just going to take the race line. So O'Leary, thankfully, being a little bit more wise in that battle, waiting for his opportunity. Fight here for the top 10. We've got Cedo Via, Jack London, Callum Wilson fighting for 9th place. Again, a nice little three-way fight going on here towards the lower end of the top 10. You've also got Scott Sovic and Phil Garside, Stephen Haley, not a million miles away. So the more these guys battle, the more drivers are going to be roped into the fight. Also, Lewis Redshaw has demoted Dan Cole to 3rd place in this race, which, you know, all things said, Dan Cole probably is going to be grateful that his wheel hasn't given up at this stage, touch wood, but also the fact that, you know, he's actually had a good string of results so far this evening, and well, definitely a good day in the office also for Calamity Motorsport, because Jack London also has been showing some decent pace as well.
Certainly has, and I actually wasn't quite just paying attention exactly to the standings in the table as it all goes. We get to 5 laps to go, but for instance, like Lewis Redshaw getting up into that 2nd place as well. We're having Willis, he's having a good day up there, as you say. 2 Calamity cars inside the top 10, or people like Via just outside on his debut as well, and Fournier up into P5. It's certainly been a very up and down race here at Donington, a little bit different to what we've seen in terms of the result order from some of the races so far this season. That is what we like to see, but of course still some of the big names up towards the top. For the championship though, Matt Richards is going to be gaining a lot of points. Dan Herlock down there in 24th place, which is also known as last, unfortunately, here tonight, and that is going to drop him so many points back. It's going to be tricky to come back from that. 20 points for a race win, points go down to P15, so a 20-point haul for Matt Richards this time around, and Levy gained a couple of points in the previous race as well, so we're already up to about 22-point gap. This is getting very, you know, the gap in the standings is now getting very big and difficult for Herlock to come back from.
Effectively doubled, and we've not even done race 3 yet, so Dan Herlock, that's his make or break, but it's going to be difficult because he'll be starting from 24th place and will be on a fight back. Of course, he can't even rely on a softer compound either. He's just going to be probably relying on the fact that he's got no ballast relative to everyone else, and is just going to have to just slug it out, see if he can scrape some points. But yeah, 23.5 points coming into today. He's already lost 22. That's huge. You know, big points in the championship lost, and with only 2 rounds after this one to go, it's going to be really difficult for Herlock to recoup himself in the championship. And well, Matt Richards doing all he can in order to sort of stay consistent at the front and well, keep to winning ways. Essentially, he's done a brilliant job. And I mean, where do you really point the blame with Herlock? It's not been entirely his fault, but there's been a couple of occasions where maybe he's not done himself some favours, putting himself into silly situations. But again, can you blame him? Because he had a 23-point gap to close in the championship.
Especially that send where they went 3 wide into the Melbourne hairpin. I mean, that was a good opportunity to get in a couple of places, and of course one of them at the time was Matt Richards. And as you say, what do you do in that situation as a driver? I mean, I know from my driving days, I would have definitely tried something like that as well. It's certainly, sometimes you just see an opportunity and you have to go for it. And unfortunately, sometimes, therefore, it doesn't work out in your favour. But so you do have to take the consequences that come with that. And you do, as ever, as the saying goes, you do make your own luck many times as well. You can't be blaming everyone all the time, because you end up putting yourself in the situation. Or maybe if you have crashes in the mid-pack, try and qualify a bit better. For instance, if you're diving it down the inside, being aggressive, therefore people are being aggressive to you, again, you're the one who ultimately can change that as well. So definitely some things to think about for the future, as Thomas O'Leary here, with all the weight on his shoulders, is now trying to get past Callum Wilson. Of course, Wilson doesn't have too much less, but certainly a little bit less, and might help him in that battle as it stands.
Yeah, he's doing his utmost, of course, trying to maybe save a bit of push to pass and something to go for a late charge, because we've seen how strong that push to pass is, in all fairness. It's very strong, especially if the driver in front isn't using it. They essentially become a sitting duck. But on to the final, probably about 2.5 laps of this race, lap 12 of 14. Matt Richards able to lead the way there, you can see, fighting his way down through the crane of curves. Ross McGregor trying to get himself onto the podium, but Dan Cole not going to be too willing to give this one up. I'm sure he's going to be wanting to continue that podium score rate, but again, Ross McGregor, motivated as ever to maybe fight his way through, of course. They are in a sort of a semi-battle in the championship. I mean, Ross McGregor at 182.5, we've got Dan Cullen 167, so Dan Cullen will be loving the fact that he might be able to gain some points. Jack London still fighting away with Via and with Wilson as well. This fight for for ninth place continues on, but front wheel drive saves, easy peasy. They continue on as if nothing happened.
Yeah, I love that. Just smash the throttle, brings the front back around and saves it. But London there a little bit late with that overtake opportunity for on Cedo Via. But up inside the top 10, of course, so Via has got past recently in that one. Jeff Fournier now having to defend massively from Ben Willis up the inside. Willis actually just backing out of that one. In the background as well, Cripps and O'Leary continue their battle. We've got 2 more laps after this one, but Willis actually gets the run out of the Melbourne hairpin. We saw him go around the outside of that final corner. Can he do it once more? As also Cripps is going to be side by side. 2 battles at the exact same time, at the exact same point of the track as well. And Willis does around the outside of the final corner. He completes that move up inside the top 5. That would be his best finish of the season if he can hold on for the final 2 laps. As in the background, Cripps holds on from O'Leary.
Yeah, he does indeed. And, well, 2 fights here going on, very important fights indeed. But Willis, yeah, huge result for him if he's able to keep it there. But Fournier wanting to impress on his debut for this season as well. So, you know, to be fair, he's actually had a string. I think he was in the top 10 for both races, Jeffrey Fournier. So, already impressing. And has had his fair share of battles and things as well. But just behind this fight there, you can see that Cripps versus O'Leary battle for 7th place, which is looking very, very strong indeed. Of course, 2 very strong drivers in the form of the BMW and the Honda Civic, looking mighty, but heading our way nearly on to the final lap of race number 2. Who's it going to be inside the top 5? Will it be Willis? Will it be Fournier? With each corner that goes past, well, Willis is inspiring more confidence in himself, I suppose, to win that, because he's just extending the gap bit by bit. Fournier, I don't think, has got much of a chance.
Yeah, potentially not. Willis has done such a good job this race. He really has turned his form around since moving to that press. That was actually quite a good decision. As we were mentioning earlier, if you change you so definitely a good idea if you're down in championship. You want to change your results in the final few races. Of course, got past after the last laps. Got past. He's now got past Wilson just up ahead as well. So certainly, a few laps to pick up.
Yeah, just the final lap of this race. Matt Richards leads by 3 seconds clear of Lewis Redshall. It's been a huge fight all the way through this race. Matt scoring his way to what could well be, probably will be another victory. Just to remind you, 4 wins so far this season, looking for his 5th. And huge points gained in terms of the championship with Dan Hurlock as well. There is Matt Richards through McLean's ending poppers for the final time. About half a lap left to go. He's been level with everyone else in this race.
Yeah, apologies for a couple of technical issues for the stand. We'll try and get that big as best we can onto his final lap of race. Of course, Richards leading the way for Lewis Redshaw. And what a race has been from Richard. What 2 races has been actually, of course, starting in 11th place, managed to hold on to P6 despite his balance in that first race, and is now got himself a race victory as he goes past. Is that Dan Hurlock? Don't tell me that. Championship rival Dan Hurlock. That's such a shame of Hurlock just watching himself get lapped now, unfortunately, for Matt Richards. But around the final corner is going to be Matt Richards taking the 2nd race victory of the evening, and he extends his championship lead massively with Dan Hurlock finishing last place. Lewis Redshaw in 2nd and Kell are going to be 3rd, but side by side to the line. Can McGregor get Kell? Actually, no, he can't. So Kell, by less than 1/10 of a second, holds on to that 3rd place. Willis, best result of the season, in 5th, as all the drivers continue to come across the line. It was a very action-packed and tight and tense 2nd race here at Donington.
It was. What a race it was. And, well, looking forward to race 3, let's put it that way. Battles up and down, and, Matt Richards fighting his way through. Big moment in terms of the championship. Big dramas all the way through. Bit of contact and sends and, well, calamity along the way. There is Dan Hurlock, who is going to be gutted after what could have been some good points redeemed after a poor race 1. Unfortunately, has sort of been even worse. P24 will be where he's starting for race 3. Be an interesting sort of thing to see where he can get to, though. I'm sure he's going to be very hungry to at least recover something over the course of race 3.
Yeah, definitely difficult. He's going to have no ballast. He's going to be fast, of course, naturally. So let's see how many places he can get himself. It's going to be a tough one indeed. Is he just going to come, of course, across the line and not be enjoying that race as much as he would have wanted, just showing you how easy and how quickly your results can change around in this championship. The action is always there, and if you get involved in that, unfortunately, you will be dropping down the way. But Matt Richards, of course, took victory. Lewis Redshaw, second place. Dan Kell rounding out your podium for race 2. Ross McGregor, Ben Willis, and then Jeff Fournier rounding out your top 6. And remember, we have a reverse grid coming in just a few moments' time for the third race. Callum Cripps in 7th place. Thomas O'Leary in 8th from your pole position. Callum Wilson dropping down into 9th place. With Cedar Vire getting himself up inside the top 10. Jack London in 11th place, Scott Cervic in 12th, Stephen Haley down there in 13th place. Ryan Elliott, not the best night of his career in P14, Adam Christopher in 15th place. And the other RSR driver, Thomas Vack, down in 16th. Phil Garside is in the top 17 with Churgwin, Ben Bennyworth and Sam Dowman rounding out your top 20. Unfortunately, for the final page, couple of disappointing drives for these guys. Cam Brewster in P21, Scott Morrissey, Hannes Leppit in P22 and 23, and that is going to hurt a lot for Dan there down in P24, unfortunately. But here's the reverse grid. Number is P6 to P12. Who is going to get the reverse grid pole? Of course, it could be any of the numbers. We have it up, we've had down. We're right on the low end this time, top 7, which means I believe that's Callum Cripps who'll be your reverse grid pole position. Thomas O'Leary just missing out from that one. But of course, all the action from that is going to be coming your way. Another 14-lap race here at Donington Park GP to round out this round 8 of the season. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to Donington Park for the final race of the evening. It's VMO TCUK for 2023. This is round 8 of 10 for the season. So we're getting to the crunch time, and it has certainly been crunch for a few drivers in the opening 2 races of the evening. And just to add a little bit of extra spice, we've gone for the reverse grid race as well to finish the evening as the top 7. And I believe it's Callum Cripps who'll be on that pole position. But we'll get the grid to you in just a few moments' time. Zach, it's certainly been a very interesting evening of action so far. Quite a few crashes on the track. Let's see how it goes for the final race.
Yeah, let's see. Of course, top 7 reverse grid coming into this one, final 14 laps of racing action. It's been, as you say, an interesting bit of racing action. Again, pretty much what we come to expect with the VMO TCUK. It's been very chaotic, very frantic, and a lot of action up and down the order. And again, huge news in the championship between Matt Richards and Dan Hurlock. After a couple of bad races for Hurlock, he's now essentially doubled his points gap to Matt Richards, who is on the back, of course, after winning race 2. He's looking very, very strong. So bring on race 3. Let's see what's in store.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting and exciting race, hopefully. 14 laps of action, and we still have a bit of a mixture between the soft and the medium tyres, although we'll try and get you that information by the end of the formation lap, because, of course, some drivers saving their soft option tyres to this final race for a bit of a sprint to the finish for the evening to try and get all of the points that they can. Here's your grid, though. Cripps, Fournier, Ben Willis and Ross McGregor round out your top 4. So good opportunities for the likes of Fournier and Willis to get some really nice results today. Dan Kell in that 5th place with Lewis Redshaw and Matt Richards in your top 7. And remember, the ballast is still from the previous race. So Richards, even though 7th, has the most ballast. Then it was Thomas O'Leary, then Callum Wilson in 9th, Sid Via in 10th place, Jack London and Scott Cervic rounding out your top 12. Stephen Haley is closely followed by Ryan Elliott in 14th place. Adam Christopher is in 15th, and the RSR driver Thomas Raback round out your top 16. He was off the track in the grass last race. Let's hopefully don't see that again. Phil Garside is in 17th place. Matthew Churgwin in 18th place. Ben Bennyworth in 19th and Cam Brewster in 20th place. Scott Morris in 21st. Johannes Leppert in 22nd. Dan Hurlock from 23rd. Louis Hartley in 24th. And I believe one of the drivers must have rejoined, because we have a 25th driver for this race, which is going to be Sam Dowman starting at the back. So once again, Zach, we come to another lap 1. Are we going to see a 3rd lap 1 in a row with cars off in the grass?
Maybe, we'll see. Again, we have to appreciate the fact we've got 25 cars going into Redgate Corner through the Craner curves, and some very eager and hungry drivers, that are going for moves. For the most part, the opening laps have been relatively clean, but the opening corners maybe not sort of so much. If you sort of catch my drift, we always have 1 or 2 drivers go off. So we'll wait and see. But I would say there's probably a higher chance than not that someone does go off.
Higher chance than not, I like that. Looking at the tyre compounds, we've got Cripps and Fournier on the front row. They are also on the soft option tyre, so they should be pretty fast. Dan Kell from 5th place is on the soft. So Leary Wilson from the 4th and 5th row as well. Jack London as well on P11. So definitely pretty much 50-50 split inside that top 11, top 12. So interesting things to come potentially from that, as the softs should be a lot faster, especially in the first few laps. So 14 laps of action coming your way. Cripps and Fournier on that front row for the final race of the evening. It's just what driver in the background gets into that grid position. Myself, Cameron Roger and Zach Sweeney in the commentary booth for the final race of the evening, as it's crunch time in the championships. Can Cripps get another good start from that front row? Can Fournier do anything? Let's see how this one goes. Down towards turn 1, Ben Willis actually gets a good run from that 3rd place. Fournier comes across to block him and to defend. In towards Redgate with 3 wide, just in behind them as we're trying to get Kell diving it down the inside of McGregor to get up into that 4th place. I think he's made that one stick, but the top 3 stay as they are for now. Though actually Fournier gets a bad run. Ben Willis up into 2nd place.
Good start indeed, as the fight continues all the way down through the Crane curves. Dan Kell trying to promote himself onto the podium, inside line on Jeffrey Fournier going into the old hairpin. Beautiful move from the Ford Focus and a wide line from Ben Willis, who's gone round, and there's our answer. More cars off in the background as well. We cut away probably again at the perfect time. Willis all the way down outside the points, and to be fair, I'm surprised we didn't see more cars join him.
Oh my lord, so many. We'll try and work out exactly who's involved. Ryan Elliott's DNF'd. I think he was the RSR car going off way off to the right of the Schwantz curve. We've also had Ben Willis have DNF. That's such a shame for him. He got up into second place but went too deep into the old hairpin. And of course, multiple other cars would have been involved in that one. Dan Herlog is up into 11th place, of course, starting in about 23rd. He's gained 12 positions already on that first lap. Sometimes it does gain when you start at the back of the field. But coming to the Melbourne hairpin in the background is that Thomas O'Leary trying to have a run up the inside of Matt Richards for 4th place. That would be in towards the hairpin. Of course, I think he's just made it stick actually as well. Matt Richards dropping down to 5th.
Yeah, unfortunately not the best of starts for the championship leader. Only up a couple of places, but yeah, he's still pressing on, doing a good job. I will be interested to see how far up Herlock can get. This is the carnage that ensued. You can see Ryan Elliott, and then of course the spinning cars in the background that just completely went. There's Ben Willis going around as well.
I mean, that's a big hit in the end for Elliott, but how wasn't there an even bigger crash on the racing line? Everyone just about avoiding Willis as such and not having a huge pile-up. So obviously Elliott's unlucky there, but I think overall we are lucky that more cars weren't directly involved in that one, as we're getting a battle for the race lead. Dan Kell's looking spicy around the outside. It's going to be, he'll have the inside line for McLean's if he can hold it. The longer route though is going to be for the Ford machine, but up the inside Dan Kell goes to the front. Oh, it goes too wide though, and Cripps comes back up the inside of McLean's in towards Coppice, and Kell is going to have to settle for 2nd place for a little bit longer.
He is going to have to, unfortunately, but there's still plenty of opportunities like that one. He takes the apex, gets given the space from Callum Cripps, and now they're side by side on this back straight. Unfortunately, they're not actually, because I think Cripps just pushed the button a little bit just to get himself a little bit ahead, just enough to hang on to the lead ahead of Dan Kell. But Ross McGregor, Thomas O'Leary still fighting away. Another replay to show he lost it there going in, and then it was just, that knock-on effect. He then went wide on the exit, spun the rear round, and to be fair, good reaction times from everyone involved, especially there. Like,
oh no.
Not there though.
Okay, I said there wasn't a big hit. We didn't quite go far enough. There was a big hit. That must have been Thomas Shavak, the other DNF of the race. So that was Ben Willis and the 2 RSR cars involved in that, of Elliott and Vac, out of the race so far. Callum Wilson has also dropped down. Cedar Vire has dropped down the race as well so far. Top 4 getting close though as we come on to lap 3. Cripps, I should say, still leads from Kell, McGregor and Thomas O'Leary inside your top 4. Here's the view from Thomas Vac. Can he see the car spinning? Yeah, he can just about, but unfortunately that's just too late reactions. Oh, then he had a big hit as well with Wilson involved. Yeah,
huge. I mean, we predicted it on the open lap. Well, we said there's a higher chance than not that it happens, but well, that always happens. Oh my goodness me, Ross McGregor. We've seen some decent slides from these guys, especially McGregor. He's actually been quite good. I think the Rocket Simsport cars have done a lot of practice into their car control, because I remember John Monroe at Thruxton was also sliding around quite a lot, and now unfortunately that missed apex is going to be putting him under a little bit of pressure from Thomas O'Leary, who's on the outside. A big squeeze going into Foggy TS's. I mean, these guys are a little bit sometimes surprised that they're involved in so many incidents, but they don't help themselves too much. Very aggressive moves.
Yeah, they certainly are aggressive. For some reason, this style of racing just seems to make everyone go aggressive. It's a very interesting one. Of course, the format does basically mean you always have to try and get to the front. Obviously, in motorsport you want to win the race, but sometimes you can strategically try and finish low down, whatever. But in this format, no, you have to be getting up towards the front, and that is why also to the front is going to be for Dan Kell for the race lead, up the inside potentially of Cripps. He's obviously had the race lead before, but couldn't quite hold on to it this time around. He does though, and Cripps cannot come back. Has come down the hill now through the Crane curves, and it looks like the Calamity driver is going to be holding on to this one for now. Can he pull away though, or can the Richards & Co Racing driver come back at it?
well, we'll wait and see. Dan Curl, again, he's always been at the mercy of his steering wheel, but so far so good for the Clementi Motorsport driver. He's been on the podium waiting for his chance all evening, and now potentially could be his time in the spotlight to take victory. Callum Cripps, though, is going to give him as hard a fight as he possibly can. Thomas O'Leary as well, trying to get himself back onto the podium after a win earlier on in the evening. He's on the back of Ross McGregor, who, as it stands, is doing a really good job of keeping him at bay, but they have to be mindful of the fact that Matt Richards isn't a million miles away from them either. That BMW closing in, looking ever menacing in their rearview mirrors.
Oh yeah, getting very close, putting the pressure on McGregor through the Fox ES. It's so easy to make a mistake there, but the Rocket Simsor driver manages to hold on at that point, but into the next corner, he isn't going to be able to hold on. O'Leary down the inside, but he actually goes too late, so the Rocket driver comes back and McGregor holds on to that third place. O'Leary, unfortunately, going probably about 5-10 metres too deep on the brakes there. And this is doing really is letting Matt Richards just slowly creep up to the back of them. And of course, he's bringing Jack London with him as well.
He is, which again is the power of slipstream. You know, you can be maybe a tenth or two off the pace and bring cars with you into the battle, especially when you've got moves like that. Thomas O'Leary looking a little bit to the inside, but it has worked in all fairness, because Ross McGregor got a little bit of a twitch on the exit that O'Leary would have liked to capitalise on. Unfortunately, hasn't quite been able to. But yeah, Jack London just latched onto the back of Matt Richards and has just been using him to reel in to the two in front. Ross McGregor really struggling in terms of the grip at the mid-speed corners, especially the old hairpin. It's allowed Thomas O'Leary on that run up towards McLean's to get the outside line. It's going to be tough under brakes. It's the Toyota that's slightly later, but O'Leary's the one that's able to carry the speed, stays to the left-hand side. It's going to have to be brave into Cop. It's been a door banging as they run their way through. The fight for third rages on. Here is Matt Richards on the scene. Could we see another three-wide moment towards the latter stage of this lap?
Oh no, this is a huge battle, and as we said half a lap ago, is let Richards and London catch up, and now they are very much in this battle. It seems they are keeping those positions, but I don't think they'll be staying that way for too much longer. Here's Dan Herlock up into 9th place. That is a much better position for him, obviously starting at the back of the field as Thomas O'Leary has got past McGregor. As McGregor drops down to 4th place, Richards now is of course in that battle for that 4th place. A good job from O'Leary. He's having a solid season, isn't he, in this 2023 season of the VMO TCUK. Herlock now up into 8th place as well. He gets past Fournier.
He does, nice little move. Fournier, I have to say, despite the fact he's just lost a place, he's done a really good job on his debut. Dan Herlock, though, he's been hungry in race 3, right? I mean, now he's only 2 places off Matt Richards. He could maybe still even finish ahead of him and sort of reduce the points deficit that he's going to be, leaving with after this race. Dan Herlock, I mean, from where he started on this grid to where he is now, in only the first half of this race, shows that even when he's been beaten and is down on the floor, he will always come back and fight.
Yeah, he certainly will, and that's what you have to do if you want to be winning a championship. Of course, being second in the championship, he's obviously fast enough to try and get through these drivers, but at some point he's going to be coming up against the fast drivers himself. Up the inside of Lewis Redshaw is going to be, though, side by side between the two. No contact, that is a bit more like it. Some nice clean racing. And up into Coppice, is he going to be able to complete that move up the inside? Oh, actually, Redshaw is going to hold it all the way around the outside. It's going to be the longer run, though, as now Fournier might be on the back of the BMW driver, now down in towards the Fox ES's. And Herlock has 2.5 seconds to guess who? His championship rival, Matt Richards, who of course has the full ballast after winning the previous race. So this could actually be somehow a bit of a point score from Herlock, just showing you how interesting this format is and how quickly things can turn around.
Yeah, don't give up at all. Things can always change, and that's what I love about this format. As you say, it's just so chaos inducing with the ballast and the reverse grid for race 3 and all this, that and the other, and the different tyre choices as well really throw spanners into the mix and means that you can gain so many points at the drop of a pin. Really, Dan Herlock, though, fighting tooth and nail. He's got 5 cars queued up behind him. You can't even see them all because of how close they all are. Hardly even saw Lewis, it's Scott Sovic I could hardly see behind, tucked up Jeffrey Fournier, but of course you can see them there fighting their way through Redgate corner, just nose to tail, which again, the fact that obviously we have seen something slip through the cracks, but for the most part these guys have kept it nice and clean. It's been so hard, but for the most part, to be fair, quite fair. You give the this style of racing to some people in some random open hobbies and you'd see carnage left, right and centre. These guys, they know what they want, they know what they're fighting for, and most of the time they are fairly equal on pace, which just, you know, sparks fights like this.
Well, yeah, when you're equal on pace, you don't have the overspeed of the car ahead of you. You have to work your way through. He's in the back of that Churgwin, sending up the inside of Haley as well. That's going to be for 11th place if he can complete that move, and I think he has. Cervic, of course, trying to hold on with Jeff Fournier down this back straight, but Fournier, of course, is trying to defend himself into that 9th place as it stands. Fournier down 7 places from the front, but still doing a very good job on his debut, jumping into this season. In fact, I only joined the Discord a few weeks ago, being like, hey boys, give me a seat. And he's managed to find himself one, which is, a very good job to see him on the grid as well. But of course, still some places to be had. Half of this final race to go. And I'm still very interested to see if Herlock can catch up and somehow gain points from Richards. But as you're saying, Zach, some very clean battling up and down the field.
Yeah, it has been good. Very hard battling. And it's just been a lot of fun to commentate on this entire season. I'm glad we still have 2 more rounds at Silverstone and, of course, Brands to round off the championship. It's been a really strong season, but you can see new best lap time for Callum Wilson, 1:32.7. But looking at the other Callum Cripps, he's still within half a second of our race leader, Dan Kell. So, while Dan Kell's looking good, I don't think he's completely bulletproof in the remaining bit of this race.
Absolutely, and I definitely think that we're going to be seeing this battle continue. 5 cars aren't going to be staying in this order to the end of the race. Red Shaw is holding on, had a great race last time round, but of course has all the ballast therefore this time. Side by side is going to be, this time for Chogin, is going to be Cervic is trying to get through, not that time around, but Cervic himself is trying to get past the Hyundai of Fournier. Down this back straightaway is going to be the pair going to be going just about side by side, as well as Richards is of course looking at McGregor just up ahead of him as well. McGregor dropping down from that 3rd into 5th currently. London getting past, so 2 Calamity cars inside the top 4. That's a good race from them, but in behind this battle they somehow stay in the same order.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised there's not a move every other corner with these guys, but I suppose, as you say, they're so level on pace that they have to really try and push to actually get that moves done. So yeah, it's been as close as it is. It's going to take something special, maybe into the final couple laps. Those guys are really going to start to push, but a visual representation of how close these 2 leaders are. Dan Kell followed very closely by Callum Cripps. And to be fair, Thomas O'Leary only 2 seconds off the back. Maybe when these 2 start to battle, the Honda Civic could get himself back into the mix and fight for yet another race win this evening. Thomas O'Leary, I have to say, he's been that dark horse for the majority of the season. He's not directly in the championship fight, so you sort of overlook him a little bit, but he's been a very strong contender.
Yeah, he's solidly there in that 3rd place. He's a decent amount ahead of Callum Cripps, about 24.5 points ahead of Callum Cripps, so should be fine to hold on to that, should all the races be equal as such to the end of the race, end of the season I should say. So should be able to get that 3rd place. Very strong season it's working out to be for the DMA driver. It wasn't quite there in the first couple of rounds, but then started to slowly work his way up, and he's got 3 race victories in the last few rounds as well. But this battle continues. Fournier holds on. He got Cervic coming around the outside in towards the Foxy S. It's always difficult to overtake around the outside there, so Fournier should be able to hold on, but that's going to be tight, which means he's going to lose the speed down in towards the Melbourne hairpin. But it's actually going to be Cervic who loses the speed. Churgwin gets up the inside. Can he hold it in the braking zone as well? Side by side the pair go, a bit of bumping and banging as this could open up the door for Haley to try and get through, but in the end I think Cervic might just be able to hold on to that P11 up towards the final corner. It's going to be Haley on the outside, but no, he backs out of that one. Churgwin up to 10th.
Churgwin, again, another driver that just finds his way through the carnage and gets some good results when he can. Not really one, no offense to him, to sort of set the time and sheets of plays, but he's a solid option. He's always been reliable inside that top 10, fighting, to be fair, with some big names. He's got some podium finishes and race winners around him, and he's fighting with. So, yeah, looking very strong. Into the final 5 laps of this race, by the way, lap 10 of 14. Kell still leads from Cripps, but this fight here between Ross McGregor and Matt Richards, of course, Richards wants to maximise his points all relative to Dan Herlock this evening. Of course, already 22 points net gain, and as it stands, he's going to be gaining a couple more right here. He's pushing very hard, you can see on the limit. So too is Ross McGregor, and I think with Herlock being right behind Richards, it's sort of motivated him a little bit to get past the Rocket Sim Sport car.
I think the only thing that McGregor's been doing this season is being sort of defending from some good positions. We always seem to see him in this position where he gets a good place, but then is defending in the latter parts of it. And unfortunately, when you've got the number one machine up behind you, that is a difficult opponent. But McGregor seems to be good in these situations, making his breaking points, making his apexes. But the issue now is they've got Herlock coming back. That 3-second gap is now half a second, and Herlock is very much there with 4 laps to go as well. It's going to be difficult, I think, for these two to hold on. They're just being quite a bit slower, unfortunately, than the RSR driver. And just amazing to see the speed difference between the ballast as well, and just how you can get up from the back of the field. Of course, Herlock just making a little bit of a mistake there, but still the fact that he's looking really at a top 5 position from the back is certainly very good going.
Yeah, it's been a mega drive. And the fact he got himself, 7th place, well, where he is now inside the first half of the race. Of course, his progress sort of slightly plateaued as Matt Richards, oh no, into the side nearly of Ross McGregor. He hasn't sent him round, but he spins himself, pointing the right way after all of that. But Dan Herlock finds his way through. That is not the place you want to be parked, right on the exit curb. Oh my goodness me, that's a scary moment for Matt Richards, running too wide for the first bit of the Craner curve, or I guess the final bit, brings it back for the old hairpin, and then as he's tried to come back to the left to open it up again, he's just lost the car, went round, and, well, cost himself a very decent position in this race. That is huge. He's outside the points.
This championship never fails to amaze us sometimes. Herlock is going to be gaining back a lot of those points that he lost in that previous race. 6th place would be 10 points. Surely he's going to get McGregor, so that would be 5th. That's 11 points back. So that's halving the deficit that he lost in the previous race, the previous 2 races as well. So he's still losing overall this round, but that makes it a little bit nicer for him coming in towards the final 6 races of the season when we get to Silverstone and Brands for the final 2 rounds. It's certainly getting to that point in the championship. For 2nd place though, we got Thomas O'Leary. He's coming for Cripps for this 2nd place. Around the outside of Redgate generally doesn't work. What we can do is slow down Cripps down the hill, as of course they've got Jack London to look out in the background. So I definitely think Cripps might struggle to hold on to this P2.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's going to be tough, especially now, obviously, as we say, Dan Kell is getting away a little bit. He's got no one to slipstream off or fight with to keep the other guys behind. So O'Leary, London are all going to be putting some strong pressure on Cripps, but I guess the good news is he's not got that long left in this race to hang on to it for. Of course, we're about to start the penultimate lap of this race, so really for Cripps, he's only got to defend for 2 laps, which there's more difficult things. Let's put it that way. Scott Sovic, nice little power drift going through McLean. That was definitely nice. Some stylish bonus points, I suppose, for some of these drivers here tonight.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the combo bonus for that, but maybe some of the drivers trying it, as Cervic is probably a bit bored of looking at the back of Fournier. Down the back straight, it's going to be definitely a bit of hybrid being used there between the two. You could just see the little cat and mouse games of the distance that they had in between them, but that's a bit too wide for Cervic, unfortunately, on that first apex. Slows him down coming towards the Melbourne hairpin. As we're seeing Fournier now defend to the inside. They've got to look out because they've got Haley coming. They've got Brewster as well. All these drivers trying to fight to get inside, well inside that top 10 in the final couple of laps of the evening. Lap 13 we are starting now for these drivers, and just the final couple of chances. Dan Kell has dropped down from your 1st place. He's down into 4th, up ahead, and he's dropped down behind his teammate.
Oh, that is massive. How has that happened for Dan Kell? He was seemingly in control. Scott Sovic trying to get himself ahead of Jeffrey Fournier as well, but Stephen Haley trying to get himself inside the top 10, gets the up and under on the Team Ballast Esports driver onto the penultimate lap, going their way through Hollywood, and then of course down through the Craner curves, and Scott Sovic outside of the top 10 after, well, an unfortunate move. Now it's the 2 teammates fighting for the podium. Really opened up the fight for the lead now, because not only is Cripps under pressure from losing that place to Thomas O'Leary, but he's now under pressure from losing the race lead. He's been given back his starting position. What has happened to Dan Kell?
Let's have a look here. Leading comfortably at this point, coming towards Redgate. He's had a screen freeze or some sort of lag from his PC end, I would assume, and has dropped back, and that we believe is how he lost the lead in the first race as well. Massively unlucky there for Dan Kell, losing two important places because of that lag. Of course, it's something that does happen every now and again in sim racing, but it's so disappointing when it happens.
Yeah, it is. And gutted again for Dan Carl, because he's been waiting pretty much all evening. He's been very patient with those podiums, waiting for his chance to win. And now it's all been thrown away. But we're on to the final lap of the race now. Callum Cripps, what can he do? Thomas O'Leary. We said it's slightly unlikely that he can get 2 wins in an evening, but I think he's definitely got a chance of doing it again.
Certainly does. We're on to the final lap. Callum Cripps now leads the way. So Thomas O'Leary actually is going to be fighting for a race victory. Let's see what he can do this time around against Callum Cripps. Of course, O'Leary having such a strong season. He's taken a couple of race victories at Croft, and will definitely be trying to do that once again here with half a lap to go here at Donington Park. Final race of the evening, final opportunity to get points. And Cripps, of course, this is actually a championship fight as well. Cripps is 4th place in the championship. He's had a race victory himself at Croft and a few second places. And as it stands, he's going to be holding on with just 1 sector to go. He just got the S's and then 2 hairpins to see if he can hold on in behind Cripps and London. They've made up so many places. It's definitely been a day for overtaking. We've seen Herlock. He's come up from the back. Hasn't been able to get past McGregor, but he's in 6th place as it stands. We saw also as well Richards making up some nice places. So Donington Park GP has been a welcome return to the calendar. Of course, after starting the season at the national circuit, down in towards the final corner we go though. Cripps holding on, 1 corner to go. Can he hold on? Huge contact between the two, and O'Leary might have to give up that position, but he's lost out up towards the line. Can Jack London get up to 2nd place? Yes, he can. So O'Leary going for the race lead. In the end, loses out 2nd place as well. London gets 2nd, O'Leary 3rd, Dan Kell into 4th place. And of course, the battle's still continuing behind. This is Fournier trying to keep himself inside the top 9. He's going to hold on from Haley. Servick goes for a spin, and that allows Brewster to get past, coming towards the line as the action continues all the way to the very final metre of the race. There is Cedo Vaya down in 16th place, and here's Sam Dowman. He's been off the track a few times, finishing in 18th. And Zach, that is just the epitome of what we saw this evening, with the action going right to the end.
Yes. There is always a curveball to be thrown, always a surprise to be had. And, well, Jack London's going to be chuffed with the fact that he's able to get himself up in a second right at the death of it. It was a late lunge from Thomas O'Leary, but I suppose it was a win or nothing for him. He'd rather take the risk and maybe win and, sacrifice a second for a 3rd place. Still a podium at the end of the day, so maybe a worthwhile send. But, yeah, Callum Cripps been able to get that win after Dan Carl's misfortune, who still was able to get a 4th place. But twists and turns all throughout this evening. We had Herlock in race 1 and 2, had some bad luck. Then Matt Richards threw it all away in race 3. Just going to have a quick look. So points for 6th is 10 points. So to be fair for Richards, he's still been able to grow the championship by 12 points today, which, all things considered, isn't bad with 2 rounds to go.
Yeah, so it's going to be, sort of 35-ish points, his gap coming into the final 6 rounds. So a bit of quick maths, that's 6 points every race, minimum, that Herlock is going to need to get that championship. But here are the results for the 3rd race here at Donington Park GP. Callum Cripps taking the victory in the end. Jack London just getting past Thomas O'Leary at the death for the podium. Dan Kell in 4th place. Unfortunately, with that freeze, losing out on a pretty certain race victory here this evening. Ross McGregor in 5th. Dan Herlock from the back getting up into 6th place. Lewis Redshaw dropping down into 7th, with Chergwin in 8th. Fournier on debut having another strong result in 9th place, and Stephen Haley rounding out your top 10 after 14 laps of action. Cam Brewster is in 11th place, Scott Servick in 12th, with Callum Wilson, Adam Christopher and Ben Bennyworth rounding out your top 15. Silva is 16th with your championship leader Matt Richards. How crucial is that spin going to be at the old hairpin? How crucial is that point loss going to be to Herlock? Can Herlock have a comeback in these final 2 rounds? We're about to find out over the next few weeks. Sam Dowman is in 18th place, Scott Morris in 19th, and Johannes Leppert in 20th place. Unfortunately for TR, the move to the Infinity hasn't proved to have better results so far. 21st place for the other driver of Louis Hartley. And your DNFs for the final race of the evening: Garside, Vac, Elliott and Ben Willis. Ben Willis from that 2nd place, Zach. What could Willis have done in that race? He was looking so strong.
He was. But yeah, that opening moment, he said himself he's probably going to need a new chassis after that shunt, which is fair enough because it was a very, very big shunt, to put it quite nicely. What could he have done? We'll never know, I suppose, because you can't live in the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. He's just going to have to come back stronger for Silverstone.
And let's get a few interviews from some of the drivers who've joined us here in the commentary booth. We'll start out with Callum Cripps. Callum, of course, a little bit lucky in the end there with Kel having some sort of issue with a few laps to go. But you've had such a strong evening and rounding it off with a win. Just let us know how your evening went.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting that after the pace in race 1 and 2. I was okay, but just didn't really have a lot of mid-race pace, really. Dan was getting screen freezes in that last one, so he was disappearing on my screen and then coming back a tiny bit closer to my bumper. We had a bit of a moment through Old Hairpin that was horrid, where I thought it was game over. But and then Tom O'Leary was so fast at the end on mediums as well. We were both on softs and he was on mediums, so he's just insanely fast. But yeah, very happy to get a win at Donington. So yeah, very, very happy with that. Wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, good stuff there. And what do you think you can do in the final couple of rounds? Of course, you're still pretty close to Thomas O'Leary for that third place in the championship. Do you think you can just about get him with the final 6 races?
He's my target. I don't think I'll get him. I think the points gap, especially he won race 1, obviously, and he's just been very strong all evening. So I don't think I'll have him. But you never know in this championship. You saw the crash in I just saw it in my mirrors in race 3 there, but it was massive. So anything like that can completely turn your championship around. Obviously, it's very tight with Matt and Dan Herlock as well. They've just come, it's come to blows finally. So that's going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, top 3 is my aim. Whether I'll get Thomas O'Leary at the end, I don't know. But he's my goal anyway.
And I've just been informed, apparently you just got engaged. So congratulations for that. And also, we look forward to speaking to you over the next couple of races.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a great championship. So thank you very much. Thank you.
And next we'll bring in Dan Kell, of course, in the end, finishing 4th place, but having such a strong evening, Dan. Of course, you were looking so good in race 1 and race 3, but unfortunately, a few technical issues took away those race victories potential. So just how frustrating was that evening, because you had really good pace today?
Yeah, very frustrating. I mean, it's kind of been the sort of my season really, with technical problems with like my wheel, and then like tonight it was so weird. It was just random little screen freeze. I think it could have been network drops just based on a couple of things that happened, especially in the race 3 big one, which took me out the win. So I don't know, I'll just make sure just keep restarting my router. I hope for the best. But yeah, it was a good night. I wasn't actually sure if I was going to make it tonight because I was away with work all day today, and I got back 2 minutes before quali started.
Oh.
I didn't expect, so I jumped straight in, missed about half a quali by the time I got settled and stuff. So yeah, I was mega happy. Yeah, it was a good night. Shame couldn't get a podium in all 3 races, or at least 1 win, but I'll take 2 thirds and a 4th.
Yeah, definitely a solid race for you, and you're actually still fairly close to a couple of drivers ahead of you in the championship. So are you looking at that in the final couple of races? Are you just looking to have some fun in the final 2 rounds?
To be honest, I'm just gonna have some fun because I can't make the final round. So I just want to get wins. It's been sort of my aim this season because I've only done probably 3 quarters of the season. I just want wins, but I've been thrown out now for about 2-3 wins this season so far. I was like, it's so annoying, but I'm having a good time. And I just like to say well done to Jack for getting P2, his first podium. He's coming a long way this year, so it's very good. And hopefully, try and get that win for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Your Calamity team is doing pretty solidly so far this season. So yeah, good luck for the final couple of rounds.
Thank you.
And lastly, we'll bring in Matt Richards, of course, championship leader. And despite an up and down evening, Matt, you've of course gained points still on Herlock. So you're looking really good coming into the final couple of rounds. But firstly, start with the spin there in race 3. What happened there coming into the old hairpin? You were looking so good in that sort of 5th, 6th battle.
I was struggling with the rear end of the car for the whole evening, and just coming down the hill, it just didn't hook into the left. And as soon as I got to the transition point for old Hairpin, it just snapped. And no matter how much lock I threw at it, brakes, throttle, whatever, there was no way I was going to save it. So it's just a silly little mistake. Not sure why it didn't hook, but it is what it is.
But before that, you were having a very strong evening. You recovered very well in the first race, of course, with all the ballast you had at that point. And then, of course, getting the victory in race 2 as well. So definitely it's not a bad evening overall. Just, let us know how all of that sort of overtaking and action happened, because being a championship leader, you often get stuck like that, especially in the first race.
It was interesting to say the least. I think there's probably enough footage on the broadcast to show why. And I think we're all better than that. But yeah, race 2 was decent points on the board. Race 1 was decent points on the board. So yeah, we'll just see how next round goes.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking good for the championship, but 6 races to go. So yeah, good luck for them.
Cheers.
So that pretty much concludes it here from Donington Park GP. It's been an action-packed evening once again for round 8 of the season. Of course, 2 rounds still to go. Next, we go to Silverstone National before ending up, of course, at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. It's going to be a tricky and a tight one as ever. Chaos is always the way of the VMO TCUK. But it's been an enjoyable evening so far. It's been myself, Cameron Roger, and Zach Sweeney alongside me in the commentary booth. We had Mike Yao of Simply Race on the production broadcast behind the scenes. But until the next round in a couple of weeks' time, we wish you a very warm goodbye.